I'd like to welcome you to this forum on behalf of the Leagues of Women Voters of Palo Alto and League of Women Voters of Los Altos Mountain View. I'm Coeta Chambers, the president of the League of Women Voters of the Los Altos Mountain View area. The League, as many of you probably know, was formed almost 90 years ago following the granting of the right to vote to women, and was formed as a way of helping women become involved and understand how to become involved in the political process. So since that time, the League has been putting on candidates forums such as this to try to encourage more voters to become more aware and have an opportunity to meet candidates for various elections. The League, of course, also at times studies issues and takes positions on particular issues, but the League never takes positions on candidates, whether it's a partisan election or such as judges an nonpartisan election. So the League has no say as to who gets elected other than to support and present candidates so that you hopefully will become more informed voters and that you will vote and encourage your neighbors to vote. So at this point, I would like to turn the meeting over to Sigrid Pitsker, who's going to be our moderator for the Judges Forum. And as many of you know, following the Judges Forum, there'll be a brief break, and then we'll have the candidates for the 22nd Assembly District. Thank you.
Thank you, Coeta. Good evening and welcome. I'm Sigrid Pitsker from the League of Women Voters of Palo Alto, and I'll be your moderator for this evening's meeting. I'd like to thank our co-sponsors, the Media Center of Palo Alto and KMVT Community Television of Mountain View. This evening provides an opportunity for you to hear from and ask questions of candidates running for Superior Court of Santa Clara County. The 5 candidates here tonight are Jess Valencia, Lane Liroff, Tom Pitsker, Tim. He's a new Tim, I'm sorry, Tim. Pardon me. Diane, Ritchie, and Jay Boyarsky. Candidates have agreed to the following ground rules for this evening's forum. There will be no substitutes or stand-ins for candidates. Candidates' responses will pertain to the question at hand. The moderator may interrupt a candidate if she believes the candidate is straying from the subject. The moderator will enforce firm time limits. The time signals consist of yellow and red cards. The yellow card will indicate 30 seconds remaining, and the red card indicates the candidate should stop. Candidates will not interrupt each other. The format for this evening is as follows. Each candidate will be allowed up to 3 minutes for an opening statement. They have just drawn numbers for the speaking order. Written questions will then be accepted from the audience. Question collectors Ronna Glasskull, Trina Lovercheck, and Karen Sunback, please wave. They will circulate through the audience as they've already been doing and provide you with cards and then collect your questions. Note that although the cards may indicate that you can direct a question to an individual candidate, tonight, because of the number of candidates and our time limits, we'll be giving all candidates the opportunity to answer all the questions. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond to each question, and the order of speaking will rotate, and we will get to as many questions as we can in the hour that we have. Screeners from sponsoring organizations behind me here will organize and review the questions for duplications before they're submitted to me. Our timekeeper, Jeff Wrench, you saw him with the yellow and red cards. He'll be keeping us on time today. Please, candidates, do respect the time constraints. And finally, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. These statements will be given in reverse order of the opening statements. Please turn off all your cell phones and pagers. And also, in the interest of time, and so that we can keep this a nonpartisan environment, we ask that there be no applause or other demonstrations of support or opposition to the candidates or their positions. At the end of the forum, we'll thank them all with our applause. Now we're going to begin with opening statements. And Mr. Valencia, you are first.
Thank you. Good evening to everybody. And first of all, let me start by thanking the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this event and for inviting us all to come here and participate in this forum with you. I am Commissioner Jesus Valencia, and I also want to say I'm very proud, and as an American, very honored to be here and take part in this process. You know, I'm the son of farm workers, and in my day it was a far fetched dream that someone from my background would be able to come and sit at a table these esteemed colleagues of mine and be able to come here and ask you for your vote and your support to be elected for the post of Judge of Superior Court. And so I'm very cognizant of the privilege that I have to be here with you tonight and take part in this most treasured and important democratic process, and that is the exercise of the right to vote. We are all privileged, I believe, to live in this richly diverse community of ours, and I am equally privileged to be here to tell you that I believe very deeply in the institution of the courts that we serve. The preamble of our Constitution begins with "We the people," and I believe that that's for a very important reason, and that's because we all have to share equally in the responsibilities and the obligations to do our part to make sure that justice for all becomes a reality for everybody. Now, I'm not a prosecutor, I'm not a former prosecutor, but I do have the support of many individual law enforcement officers, deputy sheriffs, probation officers, those in the law enforcement community. Beyond that, I have the endorsement and support of community groups like the Asian Pacific Asian Pacific Bar Association, the Vietnamese Bar Association, the Latino Bar Association, the Rainbow Coalition, the Santa Clara County Trial Lawyers Association, the Santa Clara County Bar Association. All of these diverse groups, I think, are what set me apart from these other candidates, because I believe our diverse community needs to have a different composure and complexion on the bench, and I believe my diverse experience makes me eminently qualified to be the next judge of the Superior Court, and I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Liroff?
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Lane Liroff. I want to thank the League for putting this together, but I also want to thank my colleagues up here on the dais for endeavoring to run a fair and a campaign that... Speak up. Can you hear me? Does this mean I get to start over again with my 3 minutes?
Yes,
Sure.
it does.
Sure, that's fine.
I wanted to thank the League. I also wanted to thank my colleagues up here on the dais for endeavoring to run a fair campaign. And I think what we're trying to do is be positive and demonstrate what there is about us that makes us better candidates. What I bring to this table, what I bring before you, is a substantial experience wrought from 32 years serving the justice system. Many of you may know that I'm a longtime prosecutor. I tried my first murder case in 1981. And since that time, I've been trying some of the most difficult, some of the most dangerous cases against dangerous criminals. There was one case a couple years ago that the police made me accept an armed escort to court, and I was made to wear a bulletproof vest to get into the courthouse. I believe in the justice system. 35 years ago, I fell in love with the law. I've been serving it ever since. My efforts as a prosecutor on behalf of victims have been recognized by many people, and I've won awards locally, nationally. On Thursday, I'm going to receive a special award from Chief Rob Davis from the San Jose Police Department. I've also was a long time, for 18 years, law school professor. I've also been on the adjunct faculty at San Jose State for 15 years. I'm supported by 36 Superior Court judges. Now, I think judges know who would be a best judge, don't you? But I also want to talk for just a moment, and I hope we have an opportunity in this debate tonight to talk about some things you've read about recently. I'm sure you're aware of the articles in the Mercury from 2 years ago, the Stolen Justice series, or you've heard about the innocents who've been exonerated. I'm very concerned about that, and I think you should be too. Me, personally, when I read about that, organized a seminar for lawyers, and that's what I've been doing a lot of my career as well. I've helped publish 7 books for lawyers on criminal law, on procedure, on evidence, and on ethics. I also have, on a number of occasions, on behalf of the State Bar, gone out and lectured and taught lawyers how to be better lawyers. And I think that when you decide how you're going to vote, who you're going to choose, what you should do is choose the person with the most experience, but also the person who has repeatedly demonstrated an ability to lead by teaching lawyers how to be better lawyers. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Boyarsky.
I would also like to thank the League, and I would like to thank all of you for coming out on this evening to learn more about all of us. I also want to recognize my esteemed opponents for having the willingness to put themselves out there and run so that we could serve. And I would like to say at the outset that it is not who among us has the most experience. It is who among us has the best experience. I am the candidate that is the #1 choice of law enforcement. You've heard Valencia and Liroff talk about awards from Chief Davis or individual law enforcement officers. I am supported by every jurisdiction's police officers association. So no matter where you drive in Santa Clara County, you're in an agency, you're in a jurisdiction where that police department's police officer association has endorsed me. I'm the only candidate supported by Sheriff Laurie Smith and Steve Lodge, as well as endorsed by Scott Vermeer of Mountain View, Lynn Johnson of Palo Alto. But that is why I am the consensus choice of law enforcement. However, what distinguishes me even more than that, and what I think makes me a unique candidate for judge, is that I am also supported by civil rights leaders. And if you look at candidates who have run, political candidates or judicial candidates, it's rare to have someone who is supported by public safety experts, but also by people who are so concerned about civil liberties. And so I am endorsed, along with Commissioner Valencia, of the Rainbow Coalition, of BAMEC, that's the gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual community. I am endorsed by leaders of the NAACP. And for the last several years, I've been on the board of directors of the Anti-Defamation League Central Pacific region. That is because I'm specially assigned to prosecute hate crimes for Santa Clara County. I am passionate about justice. And what goes to the core of my passion is that no one, no matter the color of their skin, their sexual orientation, their national origin, their disability status, no one should be targeted simply because of who they are. And so that's why I have this unique combination of support. I will try to further distinguish myself and my experience when I have a few minutes during my closing statement as well. I will do my very best to answer honestly your questions. I'm very glad that you came out tonight, and it would be an honor for me to have your support and your vote on June 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pitsker.
Thank you. I'm Tim Pitsker. I'm Deputy District Attorney and have been a Deputy District Attorney for 24 years. I handled thousands of cases. I'm a workhorse in the office. I'm one of the people who rolls up his sleeves and gets the job done. I've had more felony jury trials than anybody else currently working in the District Attorney's office. I haven't called in sick since 1989. And an example of the type of person I am is in 1984 when I was hired on. The week before I was to go on the payroll, I was in watching a jury trial by a person who's now a judge. And he finished his case in chief and had something to do the next day on a Friday, couldn't make it. And so instead of asking for a continuance, he asked me if I would finish the case for him. So being an eager beaver, and that's the way I am, I jumped right in and finished the jury trial for him. All this prior to me even being on the payroll. So that's the type of person I am. I've had a number of cases, a couple of cases that have been influential in molding criminal law in California. The most important case is my Gardley case. That was an attempted murder gang case in which I used expert witnesses to prove the gang enhancement, the gang part of the case. That case went all the way to the California Supreme Court, who then published the decision, and that decision is now being used by prosecutors throughout the state in learning and teaching how to prosecute gang cases. My current assignment is in drug court. I'm trying to help drug addicts get out of the revolving door of the criminal justice system by putting them in drug programs, and if they can successfully complete the drug programs and get out of the system, it both benefits the drug addicts and the society as a whole. Another example of the type of person I am is that a number of years ago I did some judge pro temping for small claims court. And a judge pro tem is a person who comes in as a substitute to help out the judges in small claims court. Well, prior to doing that, I called the clerk and asked if I could come over and watch a case, because I haven't done that before, and she said sure. So I then went over to watch, and there was a courtroom full of people, and I asked the clerk, may I go in and talk to the judge? And she said, sure. And she said, well, let me check and see who the judge is. And she looked at the calendar and she said, well, the judge is Tim Pitsker. And I said, no, I'm Tim Pitsker. I'm here to watch, to learn how to go. Anyway, I did the job and finished it anyway. So that's the type of person I am.
Thank you very much. Ms. Ritchie.
Let me tell you why I'm the best candidate for...
Okay.
All right.
Start again.
Can you hear me? Let me tell you why I'm the best candidate for Santa Clara County Superior Court Judge. I was Deputy District Attorney for 3.5 years in Santa Clara County. I've been an attorney for 27 years. I've been a civil attorney for 24 years. I've spent the last 19 years fighting against discrimination. I for the last 9 years, I've been a mediator, and I've helped people be able to resolve their cases. I've also taught. I've taught at universities, I've taught at law schools, and I've taught high-tech companies. As a mediator, when I work for the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, I have the highest settlement rate of any mediator in the state. Whether I'm doing private mediations or working for the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, I have a 70% settlement rate. And being able to help the parties resolve their disputes quickly will be a savings to the court and also to the parties. And what I do is I'm able to listen to the parties, and I'm able to help them listen to each other. And I'm able to explain law in a simple and straightforward manner so that the parties can finally start to communicate and understand what their to understand, what their relative strengths are in the case. And by the end of the day, they're able to see that it would be better for them to try to reach a resolution today than to continue to go on. One of the things I find that most parties have in common is that they don't want to have to spend the next year or the next few years bleeding money to attorneys. And it's not attorney's fault. That's what it costs if you're going to do that. But the resolution you can reach yourself is tailor-made, while the court frequently cannot do that for the parties. I also have a broader legal experience in more areas of law than any of the other candidates. As a civil attorney, I've handled cases in labor and employment law, including discrimination and wrongful termination. I've handled cases in family law, landlord-tenant, personal injury, medical malpractice, toxics litigation, class actions, and education law. The way the Superior Court works is that a judge is transferred every couple of years to a new assignment. And if you don't have experience in that area of law, that means you're learning while you're handling that caseload. I bring the experience because I've already handled more than 10 areas of law, more than any other candidate who's running.
Thank you. Now we'll move to questions from the audience. The first question, we have several cards on this topic. Problems with the Juvenile Dependency Division of the Superior Court have recently been reported. If assigned to juvenile court, what changes, if any, would you implement? And Mr. Liroff, you're first.
The first thing you have to appreciate is that no candidate can announce policy or procedure for the court. Rather, the court is a collection of some 70 judges and led by the presiding judge. What I would like to do, though, is bring energy and effort into that court system. As an experienced trial lawyer for 32 years, I know how to ensure that rights are protected because I am experienced in handling those kind of cases. I think that part of the problem is that there is a lack of funding for the quality of attorneys that are provided for juveniles, and I wish that there were efforts that we could make to lobby the Board of Supervisors that could increase that funding.
Thank you. Mr. Pitsker.
I agree with Mr. Liroff in his last statement in regards to the lack of funding. I often talk to our DAs working in juvenile dependency, and I think they each carry over 200 cases a person, so that's really a problem. But in regards to my goals and ambitions as being a judge, the best way I can put it is to quote Justice Alex Kozinski of the Ninth Circuit when he said, "Our mission is to serve those who appear before us. If we can do that well, quickly, and without commotion, we've done the best that can be done." And that's my goal, is to try to live up to Judge Kozinski's standards. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Boyarsky.
I'm 42 years old. I think I'm the youngest candidate. I don't think I'll be able to say that amongst being part of many other groups. But I've been a lawyer for about 17 years. The reason I choose to answer this question that way is there are at least 6 different divisions of the Superior Court where whichever among us becomes a judge, we could find ourselves in probate, family, criminal, civil, juvenile delinquency, juvenile dependency. And so the question goes to dependency. I have the energy to go into a new assignment with my experience both in civil litigation and criminal law and throw myself into the job so that I can learn the areas of law that I'm not familiar with and think outside the box. When 8 years ago, when I was trying sexual assault cases, I had a case involving a girl named Maricela. Some of you may remember this case. The case was thrown out of court. I ended up writing a bill with State Senator Elaine Ahlquist. I didn't just mope or complain about the decision. On my own time, I wrote a law, Elaine Ahlquist introduced it, and we helped change the law. That's an example of my commitment to justice. So when I'm assigned to a place like dependency, which is in need of real change, I want you to know I have the energy to go in and make the type of changes that are necessary.
Thank you. Mr. Valencia.
Thank you. And like the other candidates here, I have actual bench experience doing dependency calendars and delinquency calendars. In the time that I've been on the bench, I've had the opportunity to sit on the dependency bench, and I know some of the problems and I know some of the issues that are plaguing that particular system, and they are very, very troubling to us all, particularly when we keep in mind or when we note that many of the people that are in that system are people who come from impoverished backgrounds. They are more often than not minority individuals who are monolingual, who come from sexual abuse families, substance abuse backgrounds. The problem is, as Mr. Liroff has pointed out, is the lack of resources. And the bench has to find a way to make an effort to join with the branches of the legislator and the executive, find ways to find money and funding to get and increase resources to have this problem addressed where it should be. And that's with the budgetary revisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ritchie.
As a deputy district attorney, I did work in juvenile, I did work in dependency. And one of the things that you notice when you do that is that children move from being abused children to being juvenile delinquents. So the place to really try to make the difference is while they're still dependent children. So one of the things that, and sometimes you have to think outside the box. You probably know Judge Cordell, when she had a family court assignment, she decided to have allow more supervised visitation of parents with their children by bringing in senior centers. And so that kind of a solution, which is thinking outside the box, if you can get additional sources from the community to help parents, whether their child is at the stage of being a dependent child and maybe being taken away from them, or if you have parents who have a child who's in the juvenile system, that is probably the one place that you can really make a difference in an offender's life. Once they're beyond being a child, it's going to be much more difficult for them to make the changes. So I think innovative thinking within the severe budget limitations is what is going to be required to make that a better situation.
Thank you. Excuse me. The next question is, compared to other states and other Western